Pick up this. I mean, let's put it this way. So I just want to return to where we left off.
Yeah.
The argument I was making was based upon your two, potential scenarios. Mm-hmm. And look, it's impossible to put a percentage on those things, right? I mean, but they're both. I think they're within the realm of possibility. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Yeah.
And I would then say that the fact that those are possible, there's obviously a whole host of other things that we need to do to deal with something like that. Like we need to be prepared that maybe we need to, have people who are sort of pushing back, in those situations. Maybe it's on the streets, maybe it's in protests, going out, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But I do think that there is, and I'm going to make the extreme argument here. If Donald Trump loses by 10,000 popular votes versus 15 million popular votes, that the pressure that Republicans will feel will be different. It may not be enough, but it will be different when they've got to make all those decisions as to whether we go ahead with this.
Sure,
that is it, because of I have no counter argument, frankly, to voting for Biden in a blue state other than I don't like Biden. I wish he wasn't the nominee, but I don't have any other active reason. I'm not concerned about the Green Party getting 5% this year for a myriad of reasons. I don't, I would love to get more write-in votes for myself as president in New York State. But aside from that, I have no reason not to vote for Biden in that situation. I don't think there's a message being sent to anybody in the Democratic Party. It's just that the slight odds that could have some material impact lead me to come to that conclusion that I should probably vote for him in a blue state even.
Well, Sam, I'm generally of the mind. I think that is a compelling argument, and I'm generally of the mind that you should vote for whom you want to win. Generally, I think fundamentally voting is a performative act, and of course, it's a private performative act, but it is a performance in some way.
But it's not a performative act.
I don't want to call it a moral act, but it is. So when it's on the cellular individual level, it is, because of course everyone knows, okay, my one vote is not going to swing the election. My vote is not going to change the total to such a degree that, when that next vote comes in, Mitch McConnell goes, well,
how many votes did he win? Did Bush win by in Florida?
It was not one.
Well, I agree with you, but
it was not one.
But the final count was 536.
But it was not one.
Well, the vote, his vote tally was higher. With their official certified vote tally. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know how many Nader got that 90,000 votes.
I will say this. I don't want to get bogged down terribly in this debate, because I'm mostly agnostic about debate. I'm mostly focused on other things right now. I think that if Biden is going to win and people vote for Biden, I mean, that's up to Joe Biden and the $1 billion that he's raised in his campaign that he's going to spend. It's up to the decisions that he makes. It's not really going to be up to me. And I'm not. I have never, frankly, told anyone.
Agree with that.
I've never gone out and told anyone, okay, I've never shamed anyone and you absolutely have to vote in this way or you're a bad person or whatever. I leave that to a personal decision based on your evaluation of the candidate. That being said, David Brooks wrote an article saying, well, if one of these scenarios happens, then you know what, we need to take to the streets, and it's not going to be these anti-capitalist, Black Lives Matter weirdos. No, we need normal people like David Brooks and David Brooks's readers to take to the streets. And he wrote verbatim, we need a Belarus or a Hong Kong in this country, made up of David Brooks readers to stop the assault rifle sickos from stealing the election. And I have 2 points on that. One is, No, that's not going to happen. You guys are not, the Volvo driving latte sippers are not going to scale the White House fence and get Trump out of there. And
be my guest, guys.
I mean, for one, most of the David Brooks readers have been appalled by people doing acts of civil disobedience over the past few months, and have their contempt for them has been frankly unbridled.
Well, my people aren't going to do it, so maybe they should.
Well, that's one, and it is interesting. I think Megan Day brought this up in our panel that it is interesting how the Democrats are not good at mobilizing people in the streets, and Republicans have actually gotten rather good and rather scary at that. But the other point is, any chaos helps Trump. It helps slow down the vote. There's a hard deadline that has to be met, and finally, this is all going to be up to Joe Biden. It's going to be up to what Joe Biden says. Because if you remember, Sam, and of course you remember because you have a photo of this, after the Supreme Court handed down their decision, this total FU decision, Al Gore said to his lieutenant, Kevin Spacey in the movie Recount, don't beat up on the Supremes. He said it is this process, this constitutional, this handover of power, this process is so sacrosanct, and that people must have trust and faith in it, that it is better to lose the election. It is better to have the election stolen than it is to acknowledge the fraudulence of it. And I genuinely wonder how Joe Biden would react to an even ballsier, even more shameless, even more fraudulent attempt to steal the election. It will be up to him how we not just prepare for it. And again, the Democrat Party has a legion of lawyers. They have to be ready for the court decisions. They have all this influence in the media and in Silicon Valley, they're going to make it. They're going to try to drill it into everyone's head that, by the way, this count isn't real. This isn't the final vote count. By the way, this isn't the final vote count. They have all that power. They hold all the cards here, and it's a question of how far Joe Biden is going to take it. Whether Joe Biden is going to say, no, this is a stolen election. You should no longer have faith in the Supreme Court, in your electoral system, and you need to commit acts of civil disobedience right now. The military needs to install me as president. You need to take to the streets. You need a general strike. Whether Joe Biden will do that, and I've got a hunch about what he's going to do.
I will also tell you that I'm quite convinced that John Kerry did the same thing in Ohio in 2004. Actually,
I don't know. John Kerry lost by a bigger margin on Ohio.
I think John Kerry felt that Ohio was stolen and did nothing about it. And I mean, that's why we Clinton the other day, right, sort of out of nowhere, had some type of was putting the message out to Joe Biden, do not concede. I think it's going to come down to Joe Biden. I have a feeling, the thing about Joe Biden, he's self-righteous enough that I think that I wonder. I mean, I wonder if they're going to, the institution over the reality. But I think it's pretty hard for him to have said this whole time around that his entire campaign is a function of we need to save the republic. This is our last chance. And then to just sort of but they were really aggressive in trying to steal it. So let's back off. I mean,
I don't know, because I honestly don't. I don't buy it from Biden when he does the save the republic stuff. I mean, he's running for. We know why he's running for president. It's for the same reason he's been running for president for the past 32 years, because he wants to be president. That's it. No, I don't think, and of course, if you run for president, you want to be president. And I think there's a limit to how that ambition can conflict with reality. And you have, guys like McCain and Romney, they conceded pretty quickly. Kerry, interestingly, they didn't concede that night, but it was looking pretty bad. That was actually the most recent time that someone in Congress actually objected to counting electoral votes, and they actually did have to go through this process. So that gives you some indication of the times that we're in. But with regard to Biden, I mean, if it's a fight between these two ambitious old men, If it's a fight between who is more shameless, then of course Donald Trump is going to win that fight every time.
I hope.
And if it's a fight between two parties, then the Republican Party is going to win that fight every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a question that I've been pondering in my head, and I've come up with a depressing answer to it. Like if this crisis happens, if people need to get out in the streets and, libs are saying, come on, Bernie bros, come on, Antifas, it's time for you to save democracy or whatever. Are we going to form some sort of popular front in support of effing Joe Biden? And my answer is maybe, maybe not. We do not have practical unity on the question of either how much this election matters or if it matters at all, who we want to obviously no one's for Trump. We don't have practical unity on this election on the organized left. But even if we did, I just don't think that we have the kind of numbers and the kind of power that it would take to amass the kind of direct action that would really pose a threat in any way to what's coming, the energy coming from the right on this.
I do think it also matters exactly
But that will not stop liberals from blaming us when Trump wins.
I do think it does matter, not just what Biden does, but also what the other, the leaders in Congress do, what Nancy Pelosi does, and people like that, and whether it seems like they're just going to make symbolic objections in the way that they've been making symbolic objections to Trump for the past 4 years. Right. Because of course no one's going to go into the street if it's just more of that crap. If it's more of the symbolic impeachment crap. If it's more of the, we're going to condemn the children in concentration camps and we're going to fund them anyway. If it's more of that, then if it's more like we're going to fundraise off this stuff, then of course no one's going to follow that. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do have a breaking point where they say, oh, no, actually, this is for real. Like, we're no longer a democracy. Like, you actually have to do something. In which case, I do think the left would rally around that. I do think the left that's cool, lukewarm on Biden and really mostly hates the Democrats will still say, actually, you're right. We should have a democracy. That is correct.
I think there's going to be. I think that's accurate. I think if there is a sincere. I mean, sincere is probably not the right word, but something greater than just sort of like lip service. Mm-hmm. I think that's quite. I mean, look, there was, the women's march. All knit caps aside, there was a lot of people who hit the streets at that time, and I think those people. There's be no less. It also depends on how the Democrats now go about this stuff and actually highlight it so that there's some awareness that, what's happening today in terms of like maybe fighting against these ballots. I mean, to a certain extent, like we've seen this with the post office, and that's been pretty good. There was a lot of attention.
Absolutely. That's the postal union.
Yep. And I think like these are making sure these things that ultimately could have implications later, making sure that they are broadcast. Things like Durham's, Durham's lieutenant quitting. I think the Democrats have failed to sort of make a bigger deal of that. Maybe they're afraid of that. But the idea is that they can signal to people and get it into the bloodstream that like, hey, this is problematic, because it's much harder to do that on November 4th. Mm-hmm, you need to lay the predicate now.
I also want to note, you talked about, guys like McConnell, making this calculation about, whether we really need the White House. I do think people like Pelosi will be making this calculation too. And they might think, we survived 4 years of Trump. We didn't really do that much to stop his agenda. And he's great for our fundraising. He's great for the media. He's great for ratings. Let's just let the show go on. Screw it. I'm not getting arrested for this crap.
I worry that is also the case. I mean, it's there has been they could have been far more aggressive on oversight if they wanted to. And, it's hard to know what the reasoning is, but there is this, she feels that she institutionally can maintain power. It's hard to sort of, we're going to see. Let's put it that way. But I think that is a possibility too. I don't think that's absurd to contemplate. I think that is very, very possible that there are people in the Democratic Party who are perfectly comfortable being the opposition party and, gave it the old college try.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking of a nightmare scenario like, oh, you leftists think it's bad when they tell you to suck it up and vote for Joe Biden. And even though the Democratic Party sucks and does all this terrible shit that you hate, you got to do it. You got to do it anyway for the good of the country. What's it going to be like when we're being asked to suck it up and do direct action because the Democrats and the liberals and the centrists won't do it? Are we going to do it? I still don't know, but I think you actually laid out a pretty convincing case, Virgil. If it is egregious enough to be democracy is actually under threat, and another example that kind of gives me hope of that happening is the airport protests that happened after the election in 2016. I mean, that really was a popular front that brought out people from the organized left who've been doing direct action for years. It brought out liberals who maybe had never been to a protest before.
Yeah.
And it because the need, it was just so clear and so urgent that we needed to do something. So maybe that gives me a little bit of hope for the future, even though, Biden over Trump is not as sexy on its face as, wanting to prevent fascist deportations and stuff.
And just to be clear, the Democrats have to signal that it's egregious. That is the point, is that it cannot be something where some people think it's the Democrats, the opposition defines how serious this is by their reaction. And